Hello, Alistair.
Hi, Robert, and welcome everyone to this session, Accelerating AI Development Teams Using Lean Thinking. My name's Alistair Lee, and I have the pleasure in introducing our speaker, Robert Bruce. We both work with Lean Enterprise Australia. Robert's one of the best Lean coaches I've worked with and has a passion for developing people. He has a special talent for engaging individuals and teams by using a mix of challenge and fun to get people on board. He's worked all over the world for some impressive companies, including starting up Amazon operations in Australia, and also worked with some great leaders. And it was one of these leaders that inspired him to try the experiment that he will tell us about today. Over to you, Robert.
Thank you, Alistair, for that kind introduction. Yeah, I actually have two hats, my Lean Enterprise hat and my co-founder of Whitewater Reinvention. So this is an experiment we've run over the last few months, and let's just jump in. So AI is a hot topic, and this is a sort of 80-year development of AI, and we really are at a tipping point. It is accelerating exponentially, and that was part of the trigger that's enabled us to do what we've done in the time that we've done it. Okay, so let's talk about the why first. So there's a very handsome picture of young Adam Salzer, who's the chair of Whitewater. Adam is actually 73, and he's probably one of the most eminent organization business transformers globally, done 150 plus transformations with people like Rolls-Royce, Cathay Pacific, UK Post. You know, the list is long. Adam's collected a lot of experience, stories, IP, methodology that he's built over the last 3 or 4 decades. I've been lucky to work with Adam for the last 5 years, and part of our mission is to try and get Adam in a bottle, and bottle all of that experience so that we can use it. So this AI activity that I'm going to take you through is part of trying to bottle Adam's wisdom and experience and a little bit of what Adam calls the fairy dust. Okay, let's keep going. So during the presentation, I'll cover how we've used lean methodologies, a lean skunk works approach, that rapid PDCA product development cycle, and embracing uncertainty and building that resilience to change as we go along. So let's keep moving. Any of you that have seen some of my presentations before know that I have a passion for the lean transformation framework. I used it when I started up and built Vistaprint in Australia, and I did the same when I started Amazon. So I thought it works in those two places. So let's try it for doing a skunk works on AI. So I think most of you probably know the basic questions. What's the problem we're trying to solve? What is the work to be done? What capability do we need to build? What is the management system and behaviors? And what's the culture that we want to build? So we're very situational. Every case is different, so you have to adapt and adopt intelligently, but it's always been a fantastic guide for me. So in Whitewater, how we approach this, many of you have heard of the term Hoshin planning. We've got something a little similar. It's called a single point of truth. activity. It's where we look into the future. We find a date that we align on, and we're basically writing a few sentences about what that future state looks like. So TAP is transformation as a product. In other words, atom in a bottle. Spot is single point of truth, and our aim is by June 2025 to pre-launch a free product. Well, we're actually almost 10 months ahead of that schedule, but I'll talk to that. Some of the methodologies and systems that we've used, if you can't read them, that's probably deliberate. But we start with the sort of spot activity, and we get that nice and tight. And then we basically start to develop a master plan and work streams, and then break that down into actions, and sometimes A3s for particularly chunky projects, and set up a dashboard accordingly so we can track, and there's good discipline behind that. So that's as a company, and then sub projects like this have their own A3. Just a bit of a phrase from John Shook: discover your fundamental purpose and align your action with that purpose. Incredibly powerful. Alignment is number one key thing off the blocks, and once you've got that, it's a very, very good starting point. So that's what we've done with this project. What is the work to be done? So the left-hand pillar, process improvement pillar. Again, I'm going to adapt and adopt a little bit. You're talking about, a product that doesn't exist. You're talking about skunk works. So the work to be done, very simply, was develop at speed a minimum viable product for internal and external testing. But also to create some of the basic building blocks if we wanted to do something else, or ship and shift somewhere else, and start to learn about AI and what possibilities it could bring us. So really an experimental activity. Very early on, we did an experiment in our thinking. I think this was four weeks in, so it wasn't the main track of work, and we called this Ask Ashley, and it's a digital human being, and we spent some time programming it with some of the Whitewater IP and curated documentation, and then started to see what kind of responses we would get out of it. So just for a bit of fun, play a demo. It's only 1 minute.
Tell me why leadership is crucial in transformation.
Leadership plays a critical role in transformation because great leaders provide vision, direction, and support throughout the change process. They help employees understand the purpose behind the transformation, navigate uncertainty, and stay motivated. Effective leaders also model the mindset and behaviors needed for successful change, inspiring others to follow suit. Research shows that organizations with leaders who actively role model desired changes are more likely to outperform their peers. Strong leadership sets the tone for the entire organization and can make or break the success of a transformation. If you have more questions about the importance of leadership in transformation, feel free to ask.
So we had a bit of fun with Ashley, trying to break her, and we had programmed her not to give any answers that she didn't know, or that we hadn't put into the black box. So we would throw some trick questions at her, like, what kind of wine do you like? which she should have responded, well, actually, I can't answer that question. But actually, she said, I like Cabernet Sauvignon. And then she went on to say, and I like ice cream as well. So one of the lessons from this experiment was that AI bots are not always obedient with the directions you give them. So there were lots of other lessons we learned from this. It wasn't something we went ahead with, but it was very informative nevertheless. And we may come back to this at a later date when some things have moved on technology-wise. We did 2 pivots. We did 4 products in 4 sprints. This was the last product that we did after turning around and abandoning a couple of others. So we have launched a chatbot on ChatGPT, and if anybody's interested, they can scan that barcode and have a play, and we would be delighted to have people's feedback. So we're in a process of intensive feedback at the moment. It's not as fun as the digital human being, and it's certainly a little bit more obedient, and gives more consistent quality responses than our digital human being did. So we've made some bounds, but we've lost a little bit of the character of the digital human being. But again, a lot of lessons to be learned. So beginning of the project, what capability did we need to build? We were very deliberate that we wanted to do a skunk works. We'd had 3 years of playing with other transformational products online, AI, with some AI houses. We spent a fair amount of money, and we weren't able to get a result. So at the end of last year, there was a discussion at leadership level, and I said, look, I really think the horizon is changing, and what would have cost millions to do a few months ago, I think if we wait another month or so, there's going to be technology that we can get hold of, and we can do it very quickly and easily, compared to what we would have been able to do. And that has proved to be true. The acceleration of technology has been amazing, and we're very much continuing to look at the search on the horizon for any interesting products that we can adapt and adopt to get us ultimately where we want to be. Interesting thing about AI capability in people. So a lot of people think, oh, they're just your normal sort of IT people or programmers, but actually a high level of empathy is EQ is very, very helpful with AI specialists, because it helps you diagnose where some of the problems or errors are coming from when these bots are responding. So that sort of psychological understanding is very, very beneficial. So that this is the team here. And most of them were working 10 or 11 hours a week, so it wasn't a full-time team. And that's, I've said that already. That's about that EQ side, really helpful in terms of unpacking and improving and problem solving. So moving on to the management system. So really trying to keep it simple, small team, lean skunk works approach. We set up a simple sprint board, rapid PDCA cycles, and at points of intensity, we would go to a daily huddle. And then when there was more clarity in terms of development work that needed to be done, we would vary that to 2 or 3 times a week. So if we it was a total of 32 weeks, and we broke it into four sprints. The first sprint, we gave no commitment that there were going to be any more sprints. We wanted to see how far we would get. So we set up deliverables, kicked off on the 15th of Jan, and within 4 weeks we had a test product, and within 7 weeks we had the digital human that I just showed. So really even surprised me how quickly we could move. In the second sprint, we really focused on quality of responses and knuckled down on data curation. So one of the key lessons was how you curate your data, how you string it together, has a very big impact on the quality of answers that come back. So sprint 2 was mainly focused on that. At the end of sprint 2, we had what we call a day of change for the whole of Whitewater in 2 locations around the world. And a part of that 2-day event was basically sharing where we'd got and getting some active user testing internally and see how they could break it. And we got some good feedback from that. Sprint 3 was where everything sort of got rather interesting. 2 significant crises, scope creep, and the product wasn't stable. And there's a term in AI called hallucinations, where it just wasn't giving consistent answers, and it would invent answers. So we really needed to get on top of that. So that was a significant challenge to unpack that. We then also started trying something called Copilot, and that meant that we ultimately did a pivot at the beginning of sprint 4 and decided that we would basically turn around and burn what we built, and start building something completely from scratch, other than the curated data and box, which is what we were able to carry over to a different system, different app, different AI provider. And rather than focusing on an internal product to begin with, which is what we had been focusing on, we decided to go from outside in and start to focus on what our customers needed. So that's where we got to by the end of sprint 4, which was launching the chatbot on the chatbot store. And that was exactly 32 weeks on time for the end of that sprint, but it was about 10 months early for where we wanted to go. So this has been a fantastic window, this first outside product, to starting to engage customers and accelerate our understanding of what they want. So that's the deep customer testing part. Then we move to the center of the house. So we've talked about capability, we've talked about the others. What's the management system that we want to have, which was the sprint mechanism. Mm-hmm. And the center of the house, the management system, is really what holds everything together and connects the roof to the pillars, to the floor of the culture. And these are just some insights from me, and a very deliberate image with these fighter planes in formation. So a disciplined daily management system creates teamwork. Teamwork and respect for people creates trust, and trust creates resilience and the ability to pivot and move at speed. And in some of those crisis points that we had, because of the trust we built, because of the daily management system and that ability to quickly unpack problems and solve them, when it did come to the point where you know, poor old Hugo had spent hours on the first product, and I said, Hugo, this was about week 16 or 17. I think we're going to pivot, and we're going to have to burn what we've done. That was a point of horror for Hugo initially, even though I had said at the beginning that was going to be one of our tenants. But because we built good trust, he was able to move through that, and then rapidly move on to building the next product. So if we move on to what's the culture we want to create, and it may not be the same culture in every organization you want to create, but for this particular type of activity, you know, be open to new ideas. So constantly scanning the horizon for developments, and you know, it's happening on a daily, weekly basis. Don't be afraid of turning around and burning what you have created. So it needs courage to burn the old, and will lead to innovation and new, greener growth. So that's what we have discovered. But some of those interesting challenge friction points are interesting things to break through and come out the other side, and then suddenly you're accelerating way beyond where you thought you could. Moving on to some of the lessons learnt. I'm not going to read through all of these, but just pick a couple out. So if you're thinking of starting an AI activity, you know, set it up as a skunk works, separate it from the normal daily business, start fast, start narrow, don't try to boil the ocean, but do have a holistic picture of where you think you want to get to, and experiment and learn. Build in your thinking on data security very early. So make sure, you know, whatever tools or providers you use, that you are making sure that your IP is secure, and people are not able to get into it. So that was another key thing. Bring the people along. So that's the part about building trust, and then, you know, making sure other stakeholders are part of it. So we did that with testing and report outs, and we had a steering committee. And the other one is, you know, build from the outside in, not the inside out. My final takeaway, reflecting back on the lean transformation framework, it truly is situational, and it is amazingly powerful, and used properly really teaches people how to think. Just imagine a world, what if we could use AI to help people use the lean transformation house more effectively, or the lean tools more effectively. I think there's a huge opportunity there. These are some of the partners that have helped us along the way over the last 32 weeks. And Alistair's come back in, and I'm bang on time. Any questions?
Well done, Robert. I've got one for you. You know, that I'm intrigued by that burning what you built, and how hard that is. What was the reaction? You talked about Hugo there, but there was other team members. What were their reactions? Was it very tough for all of the team?
No, it was toughest for Hugo, because he'd spent the most time, the most hours on stitching this thing together. So Kirsten, for example, was one of the sets of eyes that was constantly scanning the horizon along with others. So she was more embracing to begin with, because she could see some alternative ways, and she could see some of the issues we were having with, I mean, example, you know, the first attempt, version 2, would break every time OpenAI had an update. Our bot would basically break and was non-functional, and it would take Hugo hours to find the root cause of the problem. And as the model got more and more intricate, it would take exponentially more hours to solve the problem. So we were building what I call a tech debt with that first variant, and things were moving very quickly on the horizon. So I basically said, there's got to be something else out there where we don't have these tech debt issues, and we can get what we want. We didn't get everything, but we've got something that's a better start for an external product, which was the ChatGPT bot.
So there was some learning that you got out of those failures that you're able to take forward.
I think the key learning is you've got to bring people along. Sometimes it's not easy because people get passionate about what they create. But, you know, spend time with them, give them the rationale, show them the way. And once they've broken through that, you know, the whole team starts to accelerate with what they're doing and the learnings. So you learn a huge amount when you come to these crisis points. And we certainly did. And we wouldn't have come up with this product if we hadn't have gone through that crisis.
Mm. I have a question from Rakesh. What do you mean looking inside in versus inside out, specifically?
So outside in versus inside out. Okay. So inside out is basically what you think in an organization, and maybe it's for an internal use. Maybe it's for external use, but you've got your internal thinking hat on. Outside in means, you know, it's that customer design approach, and then take that and use that to shape your product. So I think to begin with, it was, you know, phase one, doing what we did, just get started, you know, it was fine. But if we'd have stuck down that internal for too much longer, it wouldn't have been the right way. So, you know, we're now engaging with customers. We're getting some very, very insightful feedback. We knew it wasn't going to be perfect, but, you know, some really encouraging feedback. We're getting clarity on what the next steps are going to be that will, you know, enrich things for the customer. And going back to, you know, bottling Adam's brain, really make it a lot easier for people to interact with questions and answers with a very logical, natural string of conversation, if that makes sense. Two-way, rather than at the moment, it's a bit more a one-way conversation, if that makes sense. So we found we've got to actually train people on, if you want to get the best out of the bot, you've got to train people on how to ask questions, you know. So we're looking forward to opening that one up on the next version of the product. Yeah. And it could be a completely different platform. We might have to, you know, torch this one. So we're still continuing to scan the horizon, and let's see what comes.
Great, Robert. We're almost out of time, but maybe last question. Just get you to expand on your thinking of how the lean community could use this. How could we?
I think it's about people's imagination. I mean, look, you know, if I take Adam Salzer and his experience, and I look at, you know, have a bit of fun here. If I look at John Shook or Jim Womack and everything that's inside their heads, that skill, that experience, you know, you've got an ability to bottle that in a different way that maybe is more usable and more accessible to a wider range, wider audience of people. So, you know, if if that's where you ask me where was my dream, I'd want to have John and Jim's head in a bottle.
Great thought to end with, Robert. Thank you for that presentation, and thanks everyone for participating. Back to the seminar. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.